Hello, 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 welcome back to Hunter Tuned. Today we're going to be assembling the Grom engine. Holy crap, I just brought my camera in from the frickin' outside world and she is foggy. Hopefully that's better. Okay, so anyways, we're going to be putting together the Grom engine today and do the assembly of the bottom end and put everything together. So I put the crank in at my buddy's house with a press and I had the footage and I accidentally deleted it. So everything is included in this video besides putting the crankshaft into the case, which is fairly straightforward. If you have a press, you just press the bearing into the case and then you press the crank into the bearing that's in the case. So maybe I'll do a separate video on doing just that. This camera is fogging up again. But enjoy the clips that I do have and hopefully this helps somebody. Alright guys, next we're going to be putting the transmission in the into the case. We just did the crankshaft. Now we're going to be doing the Takegawa 5-speed transmission swap. So what I have laid out here is the parts that come with the Takegawa and the stock parts that come out of your case when you initially tear apart your stock engine. So on the right is the stock 4-speed transmission and all of its parts. And here is the 5-speed and all of its parts that it came with. So we're going to have to take some parts from over here and swap them over here. Wicked Grom on YouTube has a video doing this as well, and I followed his video on the last couple bikes that I did and it worked out great. So I'm just going to kind of reiterate what he said and show you guys how to do it as well. So go check out his channel if you want another opinion on doing this, but I'm pretty much going to do the same exact thing that he did. So what we have to do is we have to take the right shift fork. This one says K26R. At least on my bike it says K26, not KPH. K26R. We're going to need to put that over here, and we're also going to be using like the pin. We're going to use the pin from the stock transmission. This goes through all the shift forks. So we'll put that over there. And we're also going to be using the pins out of the shift star. So this is the shift star. I've showed a lot of this on the disassembly video. If you guys haven't watched those, be sure to go check them out. So we're going to use the pins. So we'll put that over here. And then we have to take washer. So on this, this is the counter shaft. Goes out to the sprocket. I tip this upside down and I smack it onto a hard surface. And then you get this D washer, which holds it all together. Take that out. And then there's a spacer collar, and then you take this gear off and there's another washer underneath that gear. So this washer right here, and we're going to use some of those pieces on the new transmission. So we'll put this all kind of back together and I'll throw it in my stock 4-speed pile. Here's the stock shift drum and the fork that we're not using. So all that stuff, we're good. We need some of this. And we'll start putting this together right over here. Alright guys, so I'm going to start putting together the Takegawa 5-speed now, and I'm going to show you once again all the parts that we need from the stock transmission. Is just this spacer right here, which goes under this top gear on the counter shaft, and then this washer, which is under the spacer underneath this gear. So it looks just like these two right here, and we're just going to put those on the counter shaft of the new one here in a second. Yeah, so we're going to start by putting we're going to take the input shaft and we're going to take the silver D-washer that's included with the Takegawa kit and we're going to put it on here. Alright, so like I was saying, this is the input shaft of the Takegawa, and you get a silver D-washer, which is pretty much a lock washer that has to go on top of this up here. So we have to put this on and push it onto the shaft. So what you can do is you can take a socket and go around the washer and tap it on until it locks on. There we go, got the washer installed onto the input shaft. So this is all done. This is ready to go. No other modifications need to happen to this one. So we'll put that off to the side. Next, we have our counter shaft, which is where the sprocket goes on. And we are going to be installing the parts we took out of the stock transmission onto here. So we have our thrust washer, which is going to go on first, and then the spacer, and then the Takegawa 5th gear that they give you. So this is just going to sit onto here like this, and then we put our final D-washer onto it. Same thing, pound the washer on. Also, this gear has cogs on the bottom of it that need to go facing down. Pretty simple. It's not, it's a bunch of little parts, but it's not too bad. So I'm going to get this last D-washer onto this. There we go. Alright guys, so I got the case here ready to accept the transmission now that we got all those washers and stuff all on here and spacers. So this is how you want the transmission to sit. You want the input shaft this way, counter shaft this way. Counter shaft is going to be facing up when you're looking at the case like this, and then input shaft is going to go through this bearing here. So I just put some oil on these bearings, and I'm going to take the stacks, the gears, just like this, kind of keep them all together. Alright, so we're going to take the transmission gears here, and like I said, the input shaft is going to go through the case. So we're going to take that, keep these gears together as one unit, and then line up the counter shaft into the other bearing, and it just kind of sits in there just like that. So now that those are installed, we can install the shift forks, which there's 3 of them. The KPHR forks go on the counter shaft. The Takegawa C goes on the input shaft, and the other R, one from your stock transmission, goes on the counter shaft as well. So when you're done, it should look something kind of like this. And I think these 2 forks are the same. Yes. Very similar. So I think both of these R forks are the same. I don't think it matters what one goes where, like top or bottom. Maybe it does. I'll double check that and let you know. Is the bevel the same? Like, these 2 forks look pretty much identical. So I don't think there's much of a difference. The Takegawa one, just remember, goes on there on the input shaft. So then all your forks are hooked up and should look something like this. So you have fork here, and fork here, and they sit on the sliders of the gears. So now we can put the drum in, which there's one side of the drum has 2 holes on it. That needs to face down into the case. So it's going to sit in here like this. And as you turn this in, you want to line up the forks. So now that that's pushed in there, we can line this fork up and put it into the drum, line this fork up and put it in the drum, and then line the bottom one up, and put it in the drum. You might have to lift up on these gears to get it to its happy spot. So now they're all sitting into the drum, as you can see, and we can put our pin through the center of this. So we'll take the pin, we'll put some oil on it, and we'll slide it down in. And then it goes all the way down into the case. There's a hole for that rod as well. There we go. All set. You can rotate this drum now, and you can see the shifting action happening. This is all good to go. And next we'll flip it over and put the star on the other end of the shift drum so it doesn't fall out. Actually, we probably could seal the case at this point and then put the star on afterwards. So I'm gonna lube this up a little bit, get some oil on all the gears. We can rotate it, splash it around. Alright guys, so I'm ready to put the case halves on. I did verify actually the Takegawa KPHR fork, the one that says Takegawa on it, goes on the bottom of the shift drum. And then the KPHR from your stock transmission goes on the top. Takegawa C goes in the center. So I just got some RTV. Oop. I just got some RTV laid out on this case half here, all around the outside. And then in here a little bit. So next I'm going to put some grease or Vaseline on the counter shaft here so we don't screw up the seal for the sprocket. Because I have done that before where I screw it up and then the seal leaks. So I'm putting some white lithium grease kind of all over this counter shaft. I'm also going to put some on the seal on the other case just so it slides in nice. Well, I just accidentally deleted the footage of putting the crank in. Oops. Dowel pins are both in. We're gonna send this thing. Got oil on all of it. It's ready to go. So we're gonna slide this on nice and gently. I always frickin' struggle with this part because I always mess up the fucking seal on the counter shaft. Now I'm getting oil on my RTV. I think I gotta pop this fucking seal out of here because I don't think it's gonna want to go. We'll try it once more. There it goes. There it goes. Woohoo! I rotated the input shaft as I was pushing down on the case, and that seemed to work, and the seal is in good shape yet. Now we just gotta push it down the rest of the way. Come on, baby. There we go. Nice. I approve. Hell yeah. Okay, get some case bolts in this thing. I'm going to start with the center case bolt, get that one in first, and then work my way out. Alright, so I got the case halves all bolted down together. So we have a motor to work with now. We're going to do the clutch side first. And I got the shifter installed, the shift rod, which just slides through. And then this little arm right here goes onto the shift star. Use those two little pins and put this bolt and washer on there. And then this guy is supposed to actually sit inside of here. So I'm going to take this back off and put this piece with the blue spring back in. So this can actually hold it in gear, and you'll hear it click, 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 click when it goes into gear. So I got the Takegawa star installed with the two pins, and then I just got this guy installed, which just clicks into these little ridges to hold it in gear. So I got that installed. The spring just sits against the case, and then you bolt it down. And now we can put this back on. The little washer to hold everything once we get the shifter back in. So this shaft is going to sit through the case like this. And there's an opening right here, little square opening, that sits into this rod that sticks out of the case. So we're going to push this through. Now we have to make sure that this goes over and it's not sitting on the washer like that. It's got to go over and under the washer. There we go, just like that. Now we can tighten this guy. There we go. The shifter is all installed. So the transmission should shift pretty much through all the gears now. All right, so next we can start to put the clutch on and oil pump, all that kind of stuff. Now that the shifter is done, I just got this pin installed into the crank. It's a really little pin that keeps this gear. It's a really thin gear that goes on and rides against that pin, and that will power the oil pump. So it just slides in there like that. Then we have a spacer. Then we have a keyway that we have to put into the crank right here. We'll tap that on in there. And then once the keyway is in, this gear is going to go on, and then we'll do the oil spinner. All right guys, I got the oil spinner delete on, that crank gear. It's pretty self-explanatory. I told you the oil pump, spacer, and the crank gear, or clutch gear. Then this piece of the oil spinner, and then you have a nut and a washer. The nut has an O-ring on it, so you have to like kind of twist and push in to get that to go on. Next we're going to be putting the clutch on. So we have two spacers. We have a wider one and a thinner one. The big one goes first, then the thin one, then the clutch basket, or the clutch. So that sits in here like this, just like that. And we have to get our windage tray for the clutch here. This has to go in with the clutch. So this all has to go in as one unit. My camera battery is going to die here in a second, so I'm sorry if that happens. Wipe this out a little bit. Get it cleaned up. So I'm going to put the piece on here and put it all in as one unit. There we go. Put these. Put this guy in first. So this goes in. Then the clutches, which goes paper, steel, paper, steel, paper, steel, paper, steel, paper. So we'll do that. I got the papers soaking in oil over here, and I'm going to stack them in one at a time. And then this piece goes on top like this, and then your clutch plate, this piece, the clutch plate, and then the springs go under the clutch plate. So I'm going to get all that assembled because my camera's going to die here, and I'll show you when I'm done. Alright, so I just got all the clutches installed. You want to make sure that all the notches on the clutches are all in the same spot, along with the bottom. So when we put this piece on, it all goes on nice. It only goes on one way, so like there's a certain notch on the case, or like the bottom of the clutch, that the top of the clutch has to sit in. So you just kind of got to wiggle it little by little till you get it all the way seated down. I'm going to pull this out to show you. So I'm going to rotate this around, making sure I'm all the way down. So now that all that's together as a clutch pack, I'm going to put it all back together with the shield back in. Now we can tighten the clutch nut and washer. We can put all this on. torque it down, and then we can move on to doing the clutch springs. Alright, clutch is done. Got all the 6 bolts in the clutch plate. Now I'm putting the oil pump in. There's a dowel pin here, and then you just have to make sure that you line up the gear so it lines up with the gear on the bottom. Something like this, just like that. And we'll get her bolted down, and then all we have to do on this side next is put the clutch cover on, and this side's all done. Then we can flip it over and do the timing side with the timing chain. There we go. Everything's installed. I fixed the clutch. I got all 6 bolts in it now. Takegawa oil pump installed. Now the clutch cover is going to go on and we'll flip it over. Alright guys, moving on. I got the clutch cover on this side, and got my hard racing shift support bracket installed. And I also got this little bracket piece with the spring behind it that I was telling you guys about on the disassembly. I got that installed, and then I also got the neutral sensor and the crank sensor installed with the little spring and the little thing I showed you in the disassembly video. Got all that done. Next, I'm going to be putting the top end of the bike together, or the top end of the motor. So I'm putting a Koso 170 setup on here with a ported 4-valve head from Mike O'Connell, and we are going to be putting that on. I have a used Koso 170 setup that I was running on the green bike that I'm going to be putting on here. It's pretty straightforward, whether it's new or used. It doesn't really matter. The install is still the same. But first we're going to get the piston and the wrist pin and the C-clips onto the piston, and then after that we'll get the studs installed into the case, and then just bolt everything on from there, and then we'll put the chain on. Alright guys, got the piston and the clips and the wrist pin and everything's installed. Like I said, this is a used piston, but we're going to use this for now until we decide to upgrade this motor in the future. But for now it's going to run the old setup from the green bike. So that's what we're doing. I got the studs installed, the dowel pins are in, and next we're just going to put the cylinder on, push the rings so it goes into the cylinder, and we're on our way to finishing this thing up. Alright, I apologize guys, I kind of got in the zone. I got the top end of the bike on, torqued it all down. I set the valve lash, which I might make a specific video on just doing that, because I feel like that's probably one of the harder parts of doing this. And I got the rest of the bike back together. It should be all good to go. And I'm going to throw it back in the bike right now and hopefully get her fired up. There's both my motors looking pretty, ready to rip. Alright guys, thanks for watching the video. If anybody wants to see specific stuff, if you can't figure it out from the disassembly or this assembly video on what to do, just let me know. I'll try to make videos specific for like setting the timing or whatever. But there's a lot of Grom videos out there too, so if you can't find it here, there's a lot of stuff on YouTube that I personally looked at to learn how to build these engines. So yeah, hopefully it helps somebody. I just got the bike on the dyno yesterday actually, and made some pretty good power, and it's been holding up great so far. If you guys want to see more of this bike, or maybe more with the A-Racer, the ECU, the tuning, I don't know, let me know what you want to see and I'll try to make videos on it. I just don't really know what to tackle specifically for videos on these things that you guys want to watch. So anyways, have a great night and a better tomorrow. We will see you later.